Have you ever had one of those days where your serve was just in the zone? You were hitting the sweet spot and it felt effortless every single time you hit it, but then the problem was the next time you stepped on the court, you were trying to replicate that experience, but no matter how hard you tried, you just couldn't find that exact same sweet spot? That's because the challenge is that you weren't using a consistent, reliable system based off of world-class checkpoints to allow you to achieve that consistently. And in today's video, I'm gonna uncover the world's most comprehensive serve biomechanics of what does Alcaraz, Sinner, and Djokovic do on every single serve? What are the exact key checkpoints that you can implement? And not only am I gonna give you those checkpoints, but I'm gonna give you a step-by-step system of knowing if you're actually achieving all 7 of those key checkpoints and empower you with the ability to confidently step out on the court every single time and execute that world-class serve technique. So let's jump right into checkpoint number 1. If you've ever felt like you were having to use a lot of your wrist, that you had a lot of tension in your serve, it's likely you weren't hitting these 2 core biomechanical checkpoints with your serve windup. Now, for full context, the serve at a high level has 5 core phases that can be subsequently broken down into 10 phases. In this video of my comprehensive serve model, we're gonna be talking about the windup, which is specifically how do the best servers in the world load their body before they serve to generate that huge force when they go to explode. By the end of this video, we're gonna cover what these 10 phases are, but for right now, let's dive into the first 2 biomechanical checkpoints that's causing you to probably feel like you're using a lot of wrist and you're not tapping into huge force from your shoulder and from that effortless power and experience from the bigger muscles of your body. So the first 2 key checkpoints, if we pull out Alcaraz, Sinner, and Djokovic, you'll see that their elbows from a rear angle and their elbows from a side angle are all going to have virtually identical positions, which the first, we're gonna talk about how high should you have your right elbow or your left elbow from the side angle. If we break down and use a biomechanics analysis system, you'll see that a common mistake that a lot of players make is their elbow will either be too high or too low prior to their acceleration. The exact biomechanical value that the world's best servers tap into on every single windup and on every single serve, whether it's kick, whether it's flat, or whether it's slice, is you want to see that your elbow is positioned approximately 20 degrees beneath the height of your shoulders to 0. So in other words, right before you serve, the key checkpoint that you want to feel is that your right elbow is going to be perfectly in line with your shoulders or slightly below. The key benefit that this provides is it then allows you to generate the maximum upward force and the maximum upward runway as you go into executing your world-class serve technique. So how can you know if you're confidently achieving this or not? All you need to do the next time you serve is simply start with your arm in this key checkpoint and look right at your right elbow and just see, is my right elbow slightly beneath my shoulders, just like this. From there, you can now initiate a leg drive in an upward force to generate that huge force going up into your serve. Now we've covered checkpoint number 7. Let's go into checkpoint number 6. If you haven't consistently been able to feel like you were really tapping into your shoulder, it's likely you weren't hitting this checkpoint number 6. So if we look at the world's best servers from a rear angle, you'll see that their right elbow is going to be positioned in line or slightly behind their shoulders. This plane of motion is known as abduction of the right or the left shoulder. The key benefit and the reason why this is so important for you to achieve is that by making sure that before you accelerate, your elbow is in line or behind your shoulders, abducted back, right? I'm squeezing my right elbow back. What this allows you to do is allows you to generate upward force coming from the elbow going up and forward to create that pro drop into your serve. So the next time before you serve, just consciously focus. Are you getting that right elbow abducted back, or conversely, is it too far on this side? If it's too far on this side, you're not gonna be able to generate that upward force. It's gonna result into a weaker serve. Whereas conversely, if you get that right elbow back, you get it abducted behind, you're gonna feel yourself able to get that huge effortless force, and it's just gonna feel like you're using the bigger muscles of your body. So what's the way that you can know with confidence if you're achieving it or not? Simply focus on when you serve. Feel that right elbow being squeezed back. By squeezing back the right elbow, it's then gonna allow you to tap in to that shoulder external rotation coming from the racket as you accelerate up into the serve. So make sure you hit this key checkpoint. You're gonna be feeling that whip and pop every time you serve. Let's now dive into checkpoint number 5. If you're struggling to achieve that effortless pro drop position on your serve, or you find yourself using a lot of wrist and it's more of a waiter's tray serve, you're likely not hitting this 5th key crucial serve biomechanics checkpoint, which is if we pull out the world's best servers from a side angle, you'll see that they all have their elbow bent at approximately a 90-degree angle. Here would be an open angle, here would be about a 70-degree angle. You'll see with all these world-class servers, it's at about that 90-degree angle. The key benefit of this is by achieving a 90-degree angle checkpoint, what it's gonna allow you to do is it's gonna allow you to generate the maximum racket head speed going down into your serve, and therefore also use the maximum racket head speed going up by generating power from your shoulder. The problem and mistake that a lot of players make is they'll usually have their racket too open, or it will be too closed. And this will decrease the amount of downward force that you're getting, and will consequently result in more of a weaker serve where you're using more of the little muscles. So the key checkpoint to focus on. Now, to give you a recap, we've covered, you wanna have your right elbow in line or slightly below the shoulder from a side angle. Do you want to have that confidence of being able to execute all of these key checkpoints consistently and reliably by programming it into your unconscious muscle memory? I'd encourage you to click the link in the description to watch a free video to learn about a comprehensive system that you can use to put every single one of these key checkpoints, as well as every other phase of world-class serve technique, into your unconscious muscle memory. All right, back to the video. From the rear angle, you want to have that elbow back behind the shoulders, and now again from a side angle. Using that biomechanics system, you want to not have the elbow too open, and you don't want to have the elbow too closed, but right at about that 90-degree checkpoint. You tap into that key checkpoint, you're going to find yourself able to generate that huge force coming from the bigger muscles of the shoulder. Let's get a world-class athlete, and let's now dive in to the biomechanics checkpoint number 4. So one thing you'll see with all the best servers in the world is the edge of their racket is gonna go in, the edge of their racket's gonna go out, and then the edge of their racket is gonna go up. What's responsible for this crucial checkpoint you may have heard of, and is gonna give you that ability to feel that huge force coming from your pec, your shoulder, and your lat, is achieving the optimal amount of pronation and supination. What the world's best servers do is at the end of their windup checkpoint, you'll see that the strings of their racket are gonna be in approximately a 45-degree supinated position. This might sound complicated, but the simple checkpoint is simply when you're serving, if you were to look up at your strings, do you see that your strings are pointed inward on a diagonal? Whereas a lot of common mistake that a lot of players make is their racket will be too supinated or too pronated. What this is gonna do is it's not gonna allow you to get the force from your shoulder, but it's gonna create your wrist and your forearm to be in more of an open and a weakened position. So the key checkpoint that you wanna focus on is simply, when you accelerate, do you have your racket strings pointed inward at about that 45-degree angle? So you should see it's on a diagonal. What that's gonna empower you to do is when you serve, you're then gonna feel yourself effortlessly get that edge to go in, out, and up, just like that, to give you that huge amount of force. Follow those key checkpoints and you're gonna be tapping in to the biggest muscles of your shoulder, just like that. Let's jump in, checkpoint number 3. If you want to feel that you're truly hitting the sweet spot and getting that fluid wrist snap and just having that effortless whip-like action on your serve, it's crucial that you achieve and hit checkpoints 3 and checkpoints 2, which are both related directly to the wrist. Let's start with the third checkpoint, where best viewed from a rear angle, the key checkpoint that you want to achieve, that the world's best servers achieve on every single serve, is the degree of wrist flexion to wrist extension. If we zoom in to ultra clear detail, the best servers in the world, notice how their wrist isn't flexed and it isn't extended, but it's actually in a perfectly neutral position. A really common mistake that a lot of players make is they'll have this wrist either too flexed or it will be too extended. But the world's best servers just have it in that completely neutral position. The way to know if you're executing this checkpoint correctly is simply assess when you load up with your windup, is your strings pointed directly up? In other words, if I draw a line from my elbow all the way up to the tip of my racket, is that in a straight line, or is it kind of down, or is it kind of up? If you want to serve like the best players in the world and get that effortless whip-like feeling where it just like flies off the racket, seek to achieve that neutral wrist configuration. The next checkpoint we want to assess, checkpoint number 2, is pulling out these world's best servers again. You'll see that their wrist is also now going to be in an ulnarly deviated position at approximately 45 degrees. This is evinced by the tips of their rackets being pointed directly up. A common mistake that a lot of players make is from that side angle, what they're going to do is they're going to have their wrist pointed inwards. This is known as wrist radial deviation. Whereas we don't want to have that just yet. We want to make sure that the strings are pointed directly up, which is created from that wrist ulnar deviation. What that's going to empower you to do is then get that slingshot-like effect as the racket travels from being up to being in to get that huge force just like that. So just remember, the next time you step on the court, you want to have your wrist towards the edge of your pinky pointed out to get the string up, and you also want to have the racket from the elbow to the string pointed in a straight line. So you're not here, and also you're not here, you're right there. You achieve those 4 dimensions of motion associated with the wrist. That's what's going to give you that fluid whip-like action when you serve. Let's close with the most important checkpoint, checkpoint number 1. Let's go. All right, so here's a quick recap of all the checkpoints that we've covered so far before we close with the number 1 most important checkpoint that's gonna unlock that huge amount of force. The first thing we covered was how high or low should your elbow be. We learned that you wanna have it in line or slightly below. Number 2, how far in front or back should your elbow be? We learned that we wanna have it slightly back. Number 3, how open or closed should your elbow be? We learned we wanna have that at a 90-degree angle. Number 4, how supinated or pronated should your forearm be? We know that's at a 45-degree angle. Number 5, how flexed or extended? We want it neutral. Number 6, how ulnarly deviated or radially deviated? We want that at a 45-degree angle. We've mastered all those checkpoints. We've been on such an incredible journey. Now, what's the final secret ingredient that causes some players to be able to unlock huge amounts of force from their shoulder, whereas with other players, they just feel like they have a very limited power ceiling. They're not able to really get that force. It all comes down to the degree of shoulder internal or shoulder external rotation. If we look at every single top server in the world, again, what we'll see is that they're all gonna have approximately a 20 to a 0 degree internal rotation of the shoulder. In other words, the checkpoint that you want to look for is before you serve, right as you time your leg drive. You don't want to have your shoulder too far back, and you don't want to have your shoulder too far in. You want to have the angle from your hand to your elbow approximately pointed towards the front of your body at about that 20 to 0 degree angle. The reason why this is so beneficial, and also you can get access to a comprehensive step-by-step system that will program this in your muscle memory by clicking the link in the description and watching a free video right now. But the reason why it's so important, just as a general principle as to why you want to achieve this checkpoint, is because think of your muscles like rubber bands. If you stretch them down, they're gonna slingshot and go up. By achieving the internal rotation of the shoulder, it's gonna give you the maximum downward racket head speed. So the key focal point the next time you serve is just assess, is your arm positioned slightly in front of your shoulder before you drive your leg? You hit that one key checkpoint. When you drive those legs, it's gonna give you that huge upward and effortless experience. All right, world-class athlete, we made it, we did it. It's now time to step out on the court and implement all of these 7 key world-class checkpoints. I hope you're feeling really empowered, really excited, and I just want to express my gratitude for you to make it to the end of this video. And it's so valuable because I remember when I first started playing tennis, I was so frustrated because I didn't know these key checkpoints. I didn't know what to focus on, so I just felt myself hit this plateau. But I would encourage you to keep this learning journey going strong together, to watch that free video right now by clicking the link in the description so we can get you and empower you with a step-by-step system that's gonna allow you to unlock every single key checkpoint to achieving world-class technique. So let's get out there, let's do the work, let's think big, and let's develop world-class technique. Let's go.